Thank you, everyone, for being here today. As I introduced earlier, Brenda Scher is our Club Retention Chair. I'm Kathy Hughes. I'm your Club Growth Director, and we'll be taking you through this Cunningly Crafty Club Coaches workshop today. It is audience participation required and expected for everyone to have a voice in at least some part of this workshop today. We'll be going through several things today. Lots of opportunity for you to have some questions answered about club coaching. What is it? Do I want to be a club coach? Why would I want to be a club coach? But we'll talk about what is the club coach program in the beginning, and then introduce you to the new incentive for club coach leader credit. We'll find out who is a club coach. What would that person look like? What traits would they have? And what do they do? We'll have some opportunity for audience response, which will be in a table topics format, where Brent Felstead, our club coach co-chair, will be taking us through several club coaching questions to learn more from the audience's experiences with club coaching. We have a club coach troubleshooting guide that we'll introduce you to, and a breakout activity where you can have an opportunity to come up with a strategic plan to help this fictitious struggling club that we have for you. You'll learn to use the power of the TI website when it comes to club coaching. And there's several resources. I've downloaded them into the chat a couple of times. I will be doing that also at the end of our session. And then we'll end up with Q&A. So if you've got burning questions, jot them down so that you can participate in that at the end of the meeting. Welcome, everyone. And Brenda?
Yes.
Are we ready to dive into our presentation?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I am, at least. Hopefully everybody else is. Are you part of the team? That's where we're going to start with, because the coach is part of the club's team. So when you sign up to be a club coach, you are working with that club. You're not leading them single-handedly. You are consulting with them. You're identifying their troubleshooting, and you're identifying the issues that they have already identified, and you're helping them identify other things. And you are there to support them, uplift them, motivate them, inspire them, and give them that can-do attitude as being part of the club coach team for that club. Now, it's not just the officers, it's everybody who is part of the club. You're there to support the entire club.
I like to think, Brenda, of a club coach as akin to a coach of a soccer team or a coach of a little league team. You know, there's no shouting from the sidelines commanding orders to do things. It's collaborative. It's working together so that everyone benefits.
Is a coach, do you join are you a member of the club then? Is that how that works? You join the club?
Good question, Paul.
Not at the beginning, but we'll talk about that.
Oh,
That's
okay.
actually
Right.
in the presentation.
I'm writing that down.
Okay.
Good question, though. We are going to address
Maybe
that.
the most important question.
Okay. So we have this slide here for you to see which clubs that you really, as a club coach, are really targeting. You're not targeting the green clubs, which already are considered healthy because they have 20 plus members. The yellow club members are still, they're working and they're doing okay, keep an eye as an area director or division director, or if you're part of the executive team on your yellow group. But really, the club coach is identifying those that are under 13, so 12 members and less. They're the red group of clubs. Those are the clubs that are currently eligible to have up to 2 club coaches assigned to those. So you're going to be looking at the red clubs, not the green or the yellow.
And that's always good to keep an eye on the yellow and even the green when you're coming up to renewals and you know that there might be a drop in membership if you've had people cease to be active members, but they're still technically in your club. Just something to watch, but we'll obviously pay attention mostly to the red clubs.
So the club coach program. So again, we already mentioned the eligibility to be a club coach for a specific club. The membership is between 1 to 12 members. Ideally, we're focusing on the 9, 10, 11, and 12 member clubs because those have the potential. The process is that it's a handshake between the club and the club coach. So when you're looking to identify which club you want to work with, you've maybe gone out and visited that club already. They're in agreement that they want a club coach and they both agree to work with each other. Now, Miss Kathy Hughes, ultimately as club growth director, gets the privilege and the honor of appointing you as club coach for a specific club. So there is some paperwork involved. You just can't show up and say, hey, I'm your new club coach. There is a little bit of paperwork. We support. There is a club coach troubleshooting guide, and we're going to have a practice breakout session with that particular resource that you're going to work with the executive team of the club in identifying what are the areas they're doing really well and what are the areas where they could have some improvement. Also for you, if you become a club coach, we're planning on bringing additional trainings. And we're also talking about bringing back a roundtable concept where those of you who are going to be club coaches or currently are a club coach can all meet together and collaborate on what you've experienced, what you've learned, lessons learned, best practices, some areas or challenges that you're facing so that you can bring it up in an environment where you can share and maybe gain even more knowledge and expertise to take back to the club. And then really we're encouraging work with the area directors, and the area directors should be working with the club coaches as well as the club officers. So everybody is in sync, working together to get that club to be successful. And that is ultimately the goal, is to have that be a happy green club.
Excellent, Brenda. When I look at that eligibility, and it is a membership strength of 1 to 12 members, you mentioned that we're only focusing first and foremost with the 9 to 12 member clubs. And that's with the idea that that is a club that seems to be working the educational program and has enough members there that they really can apply the tools and resources that the club coach will give them to save their club. You could coach a club that has as few as 1 member, and it's very hard to do it. It means you will be rebuilding that club from scratch practically. So it's harder work. It can be done, but it's just not the first priority for us to help the most savable clubs. I would like to just let you know your possibilities of being a club coach here. Are you the right candidate to be a club coach? Well, if you can tick off the boxes on this slide, you would be able to be a successful club coach, or at least eligible. Are you the experienced and knowledgeable Toastmaster that could be able to be the one to answer all the questions that this struggling club may have? Do they need to know how to run their meetings more effectively and be more dynamic? Do they need to have their club officers better trained and able to handle their roles in the club? You, as an experienced and knowledgeable Toastmaster, would be the right club coach if you can answer those kinds of questions of a club. And as a club coach, remember that you're supporting members' questions that might come in about the Pathways program as well. So if you're working the Pathways program and at least through level 2 of a path, then you might be able to support others in those kind of questions that they'll have. You have to be currently a non-member of that club. I say currently because a club coach can join the club after they've been appointed. It's not usually the best thing to do right away, but you can think about that. And if each club is different, of course, you may need to be a member of the club to really effectively be contributing with their executive committee. You can be appointed if there are 0 coaches already assigned, or even if there's already 1 coach assigned, because up to 2 coaches can be appointed to 1 club, especially if you are coaching a club that is very low members. You might need all the help you can get to have 2 resources that can help this club get going. So if you've got these things checked off, you're eligible to be a club coach.
Okay, back to the club coach program. So in terms of validity, it can be a 2 program year. So if you aren't successful in the first program year, you can submit your paperwork to be appointed again for the second year. So you have up to 2 years to be successful club coach. Again, as we mentioned previously, you are not coming in to be the single-handed savior of the club. You are working with the club to support them and help them identify what needs to happen to turn them from red to yellow to green. So you're working with them and getting them and uplifting them, as our image is showing, and pushing them in the right trajectory. And again, sometimes they're not aware of the tools and resources that are out there. So your role can also be as an educator and showing them how to use these resources and where to look for them, because there may be existing things out there that they can utilize that will help them be a successful club.
Thank you, Brenda. There are some criteria that you may be wanting to know. How do I be successful at my club coach role? Well, by the end of the first Toastmaster year and or the second Toastmaster year, you will need to have added 5 or more members to the club's base membership. The base membership of the club is something that you can see on Club Central. It's listed on the Distinguished Performance Report for that club. And if you can increase a 9-member club to 14 members by the end of June, that will be qualifying the first part of the requirement. But there's two parts, because in addition to adding the 5 or more members, you need to achieve at least 5 or more distinguished club program goals. That would make your club a distinguished club if you achieve 5 or more DCP goals. You could be also a select distinguished or a president's distinguished if you really want to be a super successful club coach. And the other thing about club coaching that is not very well known is that even if after 2 years you are not successful at being a club coach, you can request to be reappointed.
Okay, guess what? We have some exciting news. Hot off the press, the club coach district leader credit. I don't know if everybody saw this, but there's a new incentive that was approved by TI for successful club coaches for the 2021-22 program year. They can actually earn district leader credit. What that means is if you don't want to be an area director or a division director, guess what? You can step up and get the club coach district leader credit. Now, to be eligible for this credit, it's slightly different than the regular club coaching credit that you would get. You must be appointed by January 1st of 2022, and the club needs a minimum of 20 members. So not just adding that 5 members, but getting them to the 20 plus mark by and on June 30th of 2022. So if you have any questions, definitely direct those to our club coach team, and let Kathy know. And then again, the incentive is a special incentive designed this year. So don't miss the opportunity. And again, what's in it for me? Guess what? You get to earn district leader credit for those people working on their DTM or wanting another DTM, because I know there's several of you in here who already have 1 or 2 or 3 and want another one. You have to do at least 6 months before June of 2022. You have to get them to 20. But if you do, feel the success that the accomplishment that you helped in terms of getting that club from red to green, and probably president's distinguished on top of it. And then you're not going to abandon them. You're going to continue to support that club at least 3 to 4 months, even after they've received distinguished status. And I know Kathy Hughes, I believe you were club coach for a club and you're still there 4 years later. Am I correct?
That's right, Brenda. And it's been President's Distinguished every year since they first qualified to be, since I first qualified to be a successful club coach. And it's really exciting. I want to encourage people. I think a number of you joined because you're entertaining the idea of being a club coach, or at least you have interest in your club, maybe needing a club coach. But it's one of the most rewarding leadership experiences that I've had in Toastmasters. It's hard work, but anything worth doing is worth working hard to achieve.
Paul, does that answer your question about that you cannot be a member of the club initially? Once your paperwork is officially in, that is when, and you get the message from TI that you are a club coach for a specific club, at that point is when you can look into joining the club if you so desire.
And the reason that they have the stipulation that a club coach cannot be a member of the club is the objectivity that person who is the club coach would have. They should be an outside person coming in with a set of eyes that do not already know the entire history of the club. Sometimes that makes them best able to troubleshoot what are the steps that need to be taken to turn a club around.
Understood.
They didn't create the problem.
That's right.
I'm the solution.
I like that. And if you are a club coach, who are you? What are the personality traits that make you a great fit to be a club coach of a club? Are you a cheerleader? Are you really motivating those members to try new things, to hold open houses, to make their meetings more dynamic? The one that encourages and supports them and builds their enthusiasm back up, which might be lagging after having been low membership for a while. And that objectivity that is needed to be able to look as an outsider into a club to help them is what you need to have. That is something, as a club coach, you will be most effective if you have that objectivity. Able, are you the one person who's going to be knowledgeable and able to have that wealth of experience where you can answer questions that the club may have of you? Are you confident? And that's something that it's not just your confidence, it's how you are able to inspire the members and the executive committee of the club to be more confident. That you need to get their optimism back up, that they can rebuild and be successful. And lastly, are you helpful? That's the biggest thing. You are there to help them. You're not there to do it for them, but you're willing to get in the trenches with them and bring them the resources and tools that they can use to get working on those problems that they may have in their club. And Brenda, I will move on and let you talk to this slide.
Okay, what does a club coach do? From this slide, it looks like, what don't they do? They attend club meetings regularly. You're not going to just show up at the first one with the club coach questionnaire and no longer be visible because the club might say, hey, this isn't working out. You delegate and create that rebuilding team. You help members examine their club with new insight, with passion. You work thoroughly through the Moments of Truth program because that can help the club identify some more issues that they can work on. You review the area director reports with the area director. Maybe you can give insight to the area director as well. Use the club coach troubleshooting guide, and we're going to go into more depth with that particular tool. Encourage the use of the club success plan because that is one of the DCP goals. So some clubs may not even be aware that it exists. Establish a mentor program. And that is something I'm particularly passionate about, where you have in the club somebody who's experienced in the club working with a brand new member. And so they don't get lost in the shuffle. So leave no club member behind. Boost everybody up. Discover how to meet members' personal as well as professional needs. Because you and I both know we're all not alike, unfortunately. We have different goals and reasons why we joined Toastmasters. So we need to find that out. Encourage fresh approaches and positive attitudes. Try different things. And if you're in a rut, the club may not acknowledge they're in a rut, but try different things. advertise. How many people are aware? Are you getting guests? Maybe they don't even know your club exists. Maybe that's the primary problem. So utilize all the tools. We have a fantastic PR manager this year for founders who is willing to help work with you to help in that particular area. And remember, membership drives sustainable growth. Remember that you know, we know from past history that clubs typically are losing 4 to 8 members, possibly. So you want to make sure that you're always getting new potential members. Serve as a general evaluator, because that can help the club see maybe the traps that they've fallen into, because a general evaluator is going to be very objective. And remember, you're objective, and encourage the officers to train as well as everybody to participate in district events, such as this event going on here. That is everything and more that a club coach does.
Thank you, Brenda. I want to address something that was just going on in the chat. Brian Dodd, you brought up a very good point, and it is the desire of a club coach to be an objective outsider, but there is no actual requirement that the club coach might be a past member of that club. That is allowed, and sometimes those people really have the best insight into the club. Every club's different. And if you brought in a club coach that was a past member and they decided to rejoin after their appointment is officially recognized by TI, of course, then they can really help rebuild that club because they do have a relationship.
Okay. Guess what? We are at the audience response thing. And for time purposes, the table topic portion or the audience response portion, we're going to have one person. Brent Felsted will be leading this section. And we have, I believe, 4 different questions, and we're looking for one person for each question to come up with a response. So raise your hands.
Our timer today is Junaidi Chen. So you may want to pin the timer if you are responding to one of these questions. Brent, would you like to take over?
Yes, thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you very much, Brenda. For our table topics section or audience response session, Jean had said that she had been a successful coach. And Jean, are you there? And would you be willing to share your experiences? The question I have here is, what is your club coach success stories?
And Brent, clarify which Jean, because we've got a couple of Jeans on the.
Okay, well, let me go back and find the response. And
it could be Jean Tankery.
Well, Boswell, area director A5.
Okay, April.
Oh, well, no,
It
April
was Jean,
told.
I was co-coach, but it was Jean Cassidy. It was that Jean. There are multiple Jeans here.
Correct. Okay. And is Jean Cassidy online, or April, do you want to share the story from your perspective?
I would love for April to share our story.
Our success was it was Club 179, and Jean was the one who really showed me how we were one of the Founders District first 4, and how important that was to Toastmasters and our heritage to keep that club alive. And it was something at the beginning of the year then where, thank God, we had, because it turned out, I think we were 8 or 9 as our base, but in reality, we had 3 members. Remember, this is like the early days of COVID. There were people who were like, oh yeah, I'm renewing, because they were expecting in a month or two, we're all going to return to being back in person again. It was genuine that they renewed, but they were not attending. So the reality was we really had 3 who were there. So having 2 club coaches, and Jean was, it was Jean and me together. And Jean was also our area director, and she brought wonderful experience, awareness of resources, pointing that out graciously to us. I brought enthusiasm. The 2 of us together, it was a great meshing. I mean, I have like major energy. So it was the meshing of those 2 together was terrific. I will say one of the biggest things for current clubs where they're at 12 or fewer members, the personal ability to know where to find new people, and not only to invite them yourself, but then to, as soon as you have a few who are willing to join you, to mentor. I'm like doing my arm around them, mentoring them to invite people was terrific, because we had a member who was Deirdre, who very quietly invited one colleague, invited another, invited her son, and they all became members, and she doesn't even know that she could have gotten a badge. So it really was over the course of the year. And then secretly within the club, Jean invited Kathy Hughes, who had terrific acumen to bring along with her. And we also had Mary Berg, who had been a former club coach assigned, who stayed on to attend the meetings, support that whole process, so that people were mentored and learned in the meetings what to do. So it was a number of factors together. It was the energy, the enthusiasm, and I would say 2 official club coaches, but like 2 other really strong folks as well too, which really, really helped.
Thank you,
It's
April.
like having a mentor and a sponsor in the club at the same time.
Thank you, April. That is fantastic. And
Just a reminder, everybody pin the timer who's participating in the table topic session.
Our next question is, what did you gain or learn from the experience of being a club coach? I'm looking for volunteers. You might have to shout out, because I only have 6 people at a time on my, and if you don't volunteer, I might just pick you. So once again, the question is, what did you gain or learn from your experience of being a club coach? And Franny, would you be willing to answer that?
Unfortunately, I've never had the privilege of being a club coach. Thank you for asking me. But I will tell you right this moment, everything you are all saying is the most relevant and I would say enlightened and inspiring story. I think the number one issue is what I saw with April, and she reported to me continuously about her work with Kathy and Mary. And what I saw was tremendous teamwork, so that the club coach didn't feel alone. They were part of a success team themselves. And to me, that is indispensable if you can make that happen. Now I'll pass the ball back to you, because they are the geniuses of a success story.
Okay.
I can answer that question.
Okay, Brian, please.
I had avoided being a club coach because of the whole idea that if you weren't successful, other than the experience, you didn't get anything out of it as far as rewards go. And I wound up being the club coach. Well, I had been a club coach for a club that I had not been a member of, but I had been their area director. And I started, I knew the club, so I asked them, can I be the club coach? Because I needed, one of those designations to get my DTM. And they said yes. But the best experience I had was taking a club from 5 members to 34 members in 15 months with the help of another member that I brought in as a second club coach. And this was 100% online club. So I didn't have any support from a district in order to do that, because the 100% online clubs were actually part of District U, which don't have any. And we did that successfully. I never did become a member of that club, but we worked with the executive of the club, and that was, they actually came up with the ideas of what they could do. We just guided them into doing that, and that was Buddies, and that was the first 100% online club that had a successful club coach do that.
Thank you.
And I encourage anybody to become a club coach. I've not done it too often, 3 times, but that's all. I'm all successful.
Thank you,
And I'm
Brian.
lucky. Anybody want to be a club coach? Let me know. I have some clubs that need a club coach.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Brian, and I will be talking. The next question I have is, has your club ever had a club coach, and what was the outcome? Do I have any takers on this one? And okay. John.
Okay. Yes, I have had a club. Here's the sounds almost impossible story. The club coach was appointed in April, and the club was distinguished in June, at the end of June. But it was largely based on knowing that the old program was ending, and there were people with lots of manuals that hadn't been turned in, and I was the VPE. So it's knowing who's going to complete your DCP education goals can be useful.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I, on a personal note for that question, was simply, I haven't had a club coach for my home club until just recently, and I'm looking forward to working with our very own Brenda Shearer on revitalizing my home club. The last question I have is, are you considering becoming a club coach? Why? So I'm looking for volunteers, or go ahead and shout out. Okay, Paul, you're waving your hand.
The answer to the first part of that question is yes. I'm more than considering, and finding out how I can get appointed as a club coach will be one of my questions when the Q&A answers. And the reason why is because I'm not in the club, but I was a frequent visitor, and they're struggling mightily, and they've been around for over 2 decades, and I don't want to see them fail. They have 4 hardcore members right now who also want it to succeed. So I'm hoping I can get appointed as club coach for this club. It happens to be Harbor Lights.
Okay, well, thank you for that bit of information. With that, that's all the time I had for table topics. I'll turn the time back to Kathy and Brenda.
Okay.
Did I win?
Thank you, Brent. Everyone vote for best table topics.
When your district gets President's Distinguished, that's the trophy.
Okay. So now we're moving on to the next portion, and we are going to have some activity going on here. But first, we want to introduce you a little bit before we dive in to the Club Coach Troubleshooting Guide. And what is it? Where is it? Who is it? Etc. And we want to identify some potential issues that the club may have experienced. And you may relate to some of these. Ego, ergo, they go. What do we mean by that? Sometimes there's clashing personalities in a club. And so the club is in dissension with maybe 1 or more members. And so it feels out into the rest of the club, and it can really demolish and destroy a club. The long decline is kind of like where Paul was going at recently, where a club that's been around for a long time maybe slowly is seeing their membership drop over the years. And so they don't even recognize they're a club in jeopardy until they've hit red. Series of small jolts. For instance, who felt the earthquake yesterday evening? I did. But what we're talking about, and a big jolt this past 2 years, was COVID. So it doesn't have to be small jolts, but something that shakes the club tremendously. And it could be the location. You lost the location, or you lost it during the pandemic, and now you have to struggle at finding a brand new location. It could be those pathways naysayers who are still committed to the legacy program, and we're trying to convert them into the benefits of pathways. And then, you know, we're all great clubs or good clubs, and sometimes bad things happen. Like a key critical member is no longer part of that club, and the club starts to crumble because of that. So, again, those are some potential ways that a club can start to see going from green to yellow to red. And Kathy's showing us our club coach troubleshooting guide. Kathy, take it away.
Thank you, Brenda. Brenda, would you mind doing something for me, which I was trying to do?
Yes.
This attachment for
Uh-huh.
the breakout room activity. I'd like to get that into the chat. It's in
Sure.
the email from last night. And
Yes.
I'll take over and talk about this club coach troubleshooting guide. If you
Okay.
want to be a cunningly crafty club coach, you've got to have great troubleshooting skills to zero in on what is the key things this club has trouble with, that if those things were corrected, you could make them a successful club. So there are 19 different areas on this club coach troubleshooting guide, which is provided in the handouts that I keep reposting in the chat. If you are, for instance, just take this first one on the list. If you are in a club where the members sincerely want their club to be successful, and you're going to give them a 5 on that, then that's an area you don't need to worry about. If you've got a club that has a 1 in this category, then they don't even seem to care if they're succeeding or failing, then the corrective action is recommended for what you might be able to do. And it's a general corrective action. You know, you have to come up with some specifics of exactly how you're going to make this an actionable thing for you. For instance, convincing members that they will gain meaningful benefits. Well, how might you convince them, though? There's more to it than just this corrective action that's on this troubleshooting guide sheet. Here are several things that you want to ask your executive committee of this struggling club if you are their coach. And after you've been in an executive committee meeting and been to a club meeting, you'll be able to give your own club coach assessment of how this club is doing on a scale of 1 to 5, so that you can make your action plan of how you're going to make this club successful. It's a great resource. Please download it and have this in your toolkit, because you will need it if you're an aspiring club coach. But rather than read everything on here to you, I wouldn't want to bore you that way. We're going to go off into breakout rooms.
Kathy, I am trying to make sure that I sent the right one. Okay, so just give me 1 second.
Okay.
It's like both of these are not
Okay, yeah, I could see that right now. So let me see, John, if you have better luck, can you attach it? I'll still try attempting to attach it, okay? Okay, I see here. I'm going to try one more time.
Okay. All right. Well,
Okay, I'm going
a
to,
brief look at what the Club
okay.
Coach questionnaire looks like. You'll get a very close look at it in this 10-minute breakout room session.
Okay,
John,
let's see if I finally got the right one.
Okay. That's it, Brenda. That's
Okay.
one. There will be 4 breakout rooms that you will be automatically assigned to for this exercise. You're going to download that sample club coaching troubleshoot guide from the chat. And this is your scenario. The club coach has met with the executive committee and attended the club's regular meeting. And they filled out this troubleshooting guide of this fictitious club. Your mission in the breakout room is to discuss as a team and come up with expanded corrective actions that you'll recommend as their club coach. So please go into your breakout room, appoint a spokesperson who will report on this when you're pulled back into the main meeting. You'll see that the 19 questions on this form are broken into the 4 breakout rooms. So breakout room 1, please make a note of which breakout room you are in. Breakout room 1 will have the first 5 questions. Breakout room 2 will have the second 5 questions, questions 6 through 10. Breakout room 3 will have questions 11 through 15. And then breakout room 4 gets a little easier job. They've only got 4 questions, it's questions 16 through 19. So make note of which breakout room you're in, and we'll all go off and have an exercise.
Yes, and room 1 is approximately first names A through part of the F's. Room 2 is F through part of the J's. Room 3 is J through N, and room 4 is P through W.
Okay, so that is first names. Okay, great.
Are we ready?
Hey, John, could you repeat that, please? I was looking at the list of questions.
Okay, you'll be in room 2, questions 6 through 10.
Thank you.
Are you
And
just
we'll have some of our co-hosts pop into the rooms and make sure that you are off to a good start.
you're sending us to those rooms, correct?
Yeah,
Okay.
you will not have to choose. You should be going automatically and starting now.
Go ahead, Doug. We'd love to hear your report.
Well, greetings from the great state of Michigan, a balmy low 60s this Saturday morning here in the great state of Michigan. Our team, while we had some challenges for the first 7 minutes, we finally settled in and came up with a few observations and solutions. For question 1, we propose that reviewing the end of the year DCP report with the executive team and find out really where the strengths and opportunities for growth would lie would benefit the club. Number 2, working with the executive team to problem solve, give them more the opportunity to identify what they feel is their core root problem. Number 3, they talked about there is not a routine of in-person where we're, this platform where we're meeting online is a challenge, but an opportunity at the same time. But we'd look at inviting guest speakers, perhaps having some fun and game moments, making table topics more energetic and engaging for everyone.
Number 4, look, the other venues. Now we're meeting on Zoom. Some clubs are meeting hybrid now, but some clubs prior COVID were actually meeting in restaurants where the noise environment was a problem. So as a club coach, make sure you're working with the club to find, if they're going to be in person, make sure they're an adequate venue that where our voice can be heard. And finally, in closing, officers need to be more responsible and more accountable for time management. It is the Toastmaster, and as a club coach, it's our duty as a district leader to encourage on time, all the time. Madam Club Growth Director.
Thank you. I like those answers. Our next room, number 2, has our division director, Gordon Kaiser, as the spokesperson. So the stage is yours, Gordon.
Thank you, Kathy. So we went over a few questions or some of the concepts. Meetings are lacking in variety and enjoyment was the first one that we tried to tackle. And one of the ideas that came up was that we can use table topics that explore stories that each individual has experienced that brings out the positive emotions, the positivity, the happiness, the laughter, the humor into a meeting, because it spreads so rapidly if those meetings have been lacking in variety and enjoyment. Another idea was table topics that are open-ended, fun for everyone. And that's when it was mentioned by Franny, the book 25 Ways to Make a Club Great by Cindy Carpenter. Cindy Carpenter, who's visited over 100 clubs, has a lot of wonderful ideas in this book. And we talked about how to find those books and maybe spread them around to the area directors possibly. Another topic we tackled was being prepared ahead of time. This is key. And one of the things that we're dealing with today that makes it difficult is how to connect with people, because so many people put their emails aside or answer emails in a priority fashion, maybe don't look at emails and don't answer the phone all the time, especially if it's an unknown ID. But so role models at the club can be used, to help push this forward using texting. So we have role models texting those members ahead of time so that speakers and evaluators are prepared. And in order to help them be prepared, one of the ideas was really helping the Vice President of Education take on that job assignment, get those assignments out early. I know some clubs have done it as early as Friday and Saturday, Sunday at the latest, with some reminders for those speakers and evaluators to get that back. And then texting is a follow-up to that. Naturally, is going to be a way to reach those people. And then we tackled convincing members pathways is worthwhile. And really, again, it's going to take some leadership within the club to help mentor individuals, make sure there's possibly a formal mentoring program that helps get people engaged in pathways immediately if they're new members. And then the pathway support group, which we could speak more about and probably does need to be spoken more about because it's not getting enough attendees. So now it's a matter of using that texting, let people know that have any questions about pathways that's there. And sometimes you have to be repetitive, not just a one-time email or text for the quarter, could be every 6 weeks. So back to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Gordon. I love the creativity and lots of good answers in that. Marty was our spokesperson of room number 3. So I'd like to give the stage to Marty.
Martin.
Oh, it's Martin. Oh, I'm sorry. I wrote it down.
I thought, boy, Kathy knows you really well, Martin.
Yeah, I guess. That's fine, Kathy. That's fine. We're like family here. So with our group, we discussed the different options. For example, question 11, we talk about how to find strategies to be recognized later, and also to make sure that the members can see their development. There are clubs that they do that regularly whenever somebody achieves something. There are clubs that they have a section where they have a recognition pointers, or even in social media. Sometimes my club, for example, put it in Facebook. So find ways so the member can be recognized and they can see what they're achieving. Then we put together question 12 and 13 because they're pretty similar in the content. And one of the solutions is to have documents explaining the duties of the officers or even members a little better. Of course, a suggestion on the document, which is to discuss and talk to the president of the club to see how they can help, how we can steer the members or officers in performing their duties in a better way. Another option is to make instructional videos just to show how things work the best way, more efficiently, so people can be more proactive in a way. And finally, encourage people to take action, to do things, to find ways to perform their duties. For 14, we explain what basically that will be explain what the DCP is, because many people don't have any idea what DCP is. So how it works, to let them know that that is the road to success, how to achieve things, and also recognize the leaders that they're in charge of that, and they eventually will send the DCP form later on. So in summary, explain how it works. And finally, for question 15, to make open houses, to have a stronger presence in social media, to invite friends, and especially to follow up with past guests, not to just let them visit and we don't contact you ever again. That was the summary of our meeting.
Thank you, Martin. I love that. And certainly DCP shouldn't be an unknown word to people. I'd like to hear from our final breakout room number 4, and that is Thomas Olson. Thomas, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Madam Club Growth Director. So as usual, when you get a group of enthusiastic Toastmasters together, there were a lot of ideas. There was a lot of other conversation. Very nice to see everybody today, even if it's still through a screen. Our questions, let's see. Number 16, guests are warmly received and made to feel welcome. This club was not doing a very good job with that. We had suggestions to in-person seat guests with a member who's kind of their shepherd to sort of explain to them what's going on and make them feel welcome. And on Zoom, you might be able to just have someone do a direct chat with them so that they have someone to ask questions of, where they kind of feel like they're being taken care of, they're not alone. Obviously, to welcome them, to explain the meeting format so that they're not mystified by what's going to happen. They kind of understand what's coming up. And then for table topics, as has been previously said, you know, if you have the members speak first and then invite them to speak. And it's common for guests who find the moxie, as Paul put it, to speak, that they may win the ribbon. So that doesn't hurt. And then asking their feedback at the end, their sort of feelings about, how they enjoyed it. Let's see, number 17, each guest receives a follow-up. So the idea of having a guest book that they would sign with their number and email to sort of commit them to the process of a follow-up, but also to make it easier for the officers to follow up. Either calling or emailing, and then making sure that the officers, that the club executive council kind of calls the ball on who will follow up with specific members, because circumstances change, and if the team works together well, you just want to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks. Let's see. Most guests who attend meetings eventually join the club. This club was sort of in the middle between that and guests don't return. And it's been mentioned here in previous answers that the personal touch is kind of a good way to encourage people to come back. It's not just a school, it's not kind of a generic curriculum you're buying into, but these are specific people with specific stories, and you get to be part of that, and you get to share yours. And so kind of making it more personal is a hook that we've found to be effective in bringing people back and kind of retaining people. And the final one, new members being welcomed enthusiastically. This club was already doing a pretty good job of welcoming new members, but Paul points out that finding their particular goals, giving them the extra attention, and kind of making sure that they're gavelled in, and celebrating with food never hurts if you can pull that off. So those were our recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone, for participating. I think we're going to have to move pretty quickly through the
Yeah.
last part of this presentation. So allow me to share my screen again.
And I was going to say the next screen, I believe, is Celebrate Successes. And I believe, Kathy, because we are running late, just remember, celebrate successes along the way, because I want us to get to the last part. Okay, Kathy, take it away.
So don't forget the power of Club Central in Toastmasters.org. There are several things that every club officer needs to be able to do, not just the club president, not just the secretary. I checked off with a green check mark some of these things that I think are specifically important. Everybody should be able to add a member, submit payment, submit education awards to back each other up, and be able to go to that distinguished performance report, which goes along with the club success plan, which is on the right half of the screen. And my encouragement is always to go for President's Distinguished by filling in those prospective members that are going to achieve all the educational goals, and adding your members, training, and keeping up with the administration work. Another thing on the power of the Toastmasters website, I won't go into depth on this, but there is a dashboard that every member can use. You don't even need to have a login to Toastmasters.org. You just navigate to dashboards at dashboards.toastmasters.org and select additional reports. When you do that, it's going to prompt you then to select your district, and then again to select this district summary. When you get to district summary, you're going to have an option to then scroll down in that third column to the clubs that need coaches report. And each club number listed on there is a hyperlink to all the club information, their contact phone number, date and time of their meetings, and address of the club. So you can, as a prospective club coach, start checking these out on your own. And then you can work with your club growth director to assign you and appoint you as a coach. There are resources. I'll put them in the chat one more time. And then we'll get to your Q&A, and I will stop sharing my screen here.
Officially, we have 5 minutes left, but I know Kathy and I plan on staying, a little longer. So
I have a comment for both of you guys. If you could kindly email those references that Kathy just pointed them to everyone, because at times it wasn't easy to get those downloaded.
Okay.
So it would really help all the
I'm happy
attendees.
to.
Yeah, we plan on sending the presentation with the links to everybody who attended
For
today.
every registered in the Zoom registration link, is presuming your email address is correct in there, you'll be emailed everything that we had, all the handouts, and the copy of the Zoom recording, and share it.
Thank you so much.
All right. I'd love to hear questions, comments. Where do you go next? What do you want to sign up now to be a club coach? Those kind of things.
I see Paul waving.
I'm not waving goodbye. I have some questions, but I'll just ask one since we have limited time. And that is who chooses the club coach. Like, for example, I'll just say Harbor Lights. I want to coach them. I don't think that they would have any objection. But do
Thank you, Paul. I'll answer that. And I know I went very quickly through that last slide, but I want the coach to come forward with a prospective club that they want to be a coach of. And then we need to get the club's agreement. Remember that handshake slide?
Yeah.
If they accept you as a club coach, first come, first serve, as long as we agree that you are qualified as a club coach.
Right.
And I know you are, so I don't have any questions there. And I'm already well comfortable that Harbor Lights will accept you as well. So we'll just.
Well, yeah, the president is my roommate, so I think.
Yeah. And the other thing is, for those who are worried that there may not be enough clubs out there to coach, don't worry.
Right.
Don't worry. There are plenty to go around.
Okay. Bye to Brian. Thank you for joining us. Great contributions today. Next question, comment.
I have a question.
Okay, go.
So I'm a new area director, and Kathy, you've probably heard from Sherry that I want to start a corporate club with a educational organization that I belong to for property managers.
Yes, I heard about that, and I look forward to working with you on that, Kim.
So my question is, like, I have certain people selected that I would like to be our sponsors and our coaches.
Now let's be clear on one thing. For a new club, you have sponsors and mentors. For an existing club that may be struggling, you have club coaches. Yeah.
Okay.
So
all
you're
right. Then my
looking at
question,
mentors. Yeah.
Well, I'll take this question offline. My question is for mentors and sponsors.
Okay.
Kathy and Brenda, I have a question then.
Yes.
Part of making sure that the club coach can be successful is that the clubs that we have identified as needing a club coach are open to it. So are you screening those clubs? I mean, they can look at a list and see a name of a club, and when they get approached to have a club coach, you know, they'll say, no, we don't want one. We don't need one. We like our club smaller, blah, blah, blah.
No,
How are you vetting the clubs?
So what
suggestion, and what we have been doing is when a club tells us they don't want a club coach, we reflect it, but we haven't gone actively. And that's a good suggestion. We'll take that to our next.
And the other answer to the flip side of that is we're encouraging potential club coaches to go and visit the club to see if it's a good fit, right? You know, to go visit them.
Right. That's important.
Check it out.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to have that same vibe with them and feel like they're open to becoming a distinguished club.
One thing, and it's an important thing that we didn't mention, is that a club president of a club that has been assigned a club coach and has worked with them for a bit and then became dissatisfied with the way things are working out can send an email to clubcoach@toastmasters.org and ask that club coach be removed.
I would ask them to first contact you and Brenda and Brent and say, you know, hey, I'm having trouble with this club coach.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys can coach the coach and give them some feedback rather than just firing them through the TI site. You know,
we would encourage
they actually have the option to do that if they hopefully contact us first.
For those who have to leave, we understand, but Kathy and I are still here to answer any questions.
Yeah. Oh, one other thing I've seen is the division director acting as a matchmaker between a potential club coach and a club that they're familiar with that needs a coach.
Great suggestion.
Kathy, it's Kim again. I have a question now regarding a club in my area.
Okay.
They just reached membership of 12, but they're not doing any educational goals. So when you say target clubs with 12 and under memberships, are you really just looking for coaches to help increase membership? Or is there also an opportunity for a club that needs to get everybody utilizing pathways?
Clubs are eligible to receive a club coach if they have a membership of 12 or fewer. However, by looking at that club's distinguished club program goals that they've met, and that can be accessed via the dashboards that we showed in the latter half of the presentation.
Correct.
You look at those things and you ferret out that kind of information. What? Nobody's achieving educational goals? What? Several members aren't even enrolled in pathways? And that should make you skeptical of whether your prospective club coach has a chance of being successful with that club, because we do want the club coaches to be successful.
Yeah, Kathy.
Getting club to healthy is hard work, and we want you to be successful.
Yeah, Kathy, I can jump in on that and just simply point out that as you've been so eloquent in saying, in order for the coach to be successful, they're going to need at least one educational goal met to be successful. They can add the 5 members, they can do everything else, but if they don't add one educational goal, they will not be successful.
That's right. So it works out. That's the only way you get to 5 goals is by at least one.
Well, I'm talking about taking them from 5 to 10 because I'm seeing on my DCP reports for 2 of my clubs, they're not getting enough points because they're not utilizing pathways. Are they enrolled? Yes. Are they past their first level? No. So I'm asking if pathways coaches, you still get credit as a club coach if they're hitting membership, they're training in LACE, but they need to get those 4 points to get up to President's Distinguished. I like President's Distinguished. So I'm just curious if that's
getting people to use the Pathways program for all of their speeches. I'm assuming they're giving speeches and not taking credit. So that needs to be worked with, a lot of support from the VPE of the club. And it makes me wonder, is the VPE Pathways literate? And that would be a big problem if they're not.
A lot of struggling clubs don't even have a VPE. That's a huge hole.
Yeah, if you have a club that needs help with pathways, reach out to me and we can get you some pathways support for that club individually. Even if they don't qualify for a coach, we still want to help the club be successful. And so I know Kathy had a lot about club coaching, but if your club is struggling in some other way, let us know, and we're certainly there to support the club, even if they don't qualify for the coach.
Well, Kim, I have another comment, and that's simply, it sounds like the clubs you're talking about, they're giving speeches, they're doing things. I have a club with, a past international president of Toastmasters, as well as several of the leaders here in this group. I'm in several clubs. Each of them would tell you to counsel your people, your clubs, to get credit for every speech they do. And what does that mean? That means simply clicking on the pathways and saying this speech will be applied to this path and get this credit. So 1, it gives your evaluator a form to fill out and gives this person giving the speech feedback. And 2, it's just simply get credit for everything you do.
Great information, everybody. I have an appointment with the concrete guy. Thank you. Thank you for putting on this workshop.
Just really quickly to all the area directors, the newer people in leadership, make sure, like Brent said, make it count. That was like my theme, make it count. Kathy and Brenda should get credit for giving this training today. So they should be evaluating each other for a Pathways project. Anytime you talk to your clubs and speak 5 minutes or more, you should be able to line up and get somebody to evaluate you for a Pathway speech. So make it count.
Even if you're giving a speech at work and at least one other Toastmaster is present, you can have it evaluated.
There you go.
You do.
I have one final question. There were a couple of dates thrown out earlier in our conversation, the June 30, 2022 to resurrect a club or to reach the goal you need to as a coach to get the appropriate recognition. This doesn't impact the clubs that are going to be, shall we say, disappearing on October the 1st because they haven't done their thing. Are they getting another extension? I mean, or what's going on?
Let me talk about that because there was an unusual circumstance, and Lori Shapiro is now a club coach, and so is Jean Cassidy.
Ah, okay.
A club that would have died on September 30th. And now there is an influx of new people out of one organization, Project Masters Incorporated or something.
Project Management in Orange County, PMI.
And they want to start a new club, but there was a project managers club that we resurrected. We got 3 members to rejoin, become 3 valid officers, and now we can add new people to that club. So that club can be resurrected. But the key is 3 that have to be.
It was my home club that we chartered in 2010, and I've rescued about 4 times. So one more time, 5th time's the charm.
But let's not confuse the June 30th, 22 date with the requirements of the club coach program, because you actually have until June 30th of 2023 to be a successful club coach. But if you also want that added bang for the buck of getting that year of district leadership qualification, then you need to have that done by June 22.
Okay, well,
and additionally, you have to get to 20, not just base plus 5 on that one.
Yeah,
Right,
that's
right.
the difference between those 2 programs.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then just to amend my question, the club that I'm desperate to help is probably not going to be around after October the 1st because of membership issues. Can I save it, or is it just let it go at this point then? Don't become a club coach for that, because they would love to have a coach.
Oh, how many members did the club have at the last renewal?
Ooh, I'd have to double check on that.
Yeah,
The
because
last renewal.
the TI gives you another 6 months before they pull the charter.
Okay.
You
So,
may have.
Paul,
I'll have
what
to
was
go-
that
I'll
club
have to
again?
Double check on that
It
one.
was Harbor Lights, Brent.
Yeah,
Okay.
Harbor Lights was the club, correct. Is the club, it's not.
Is the club.
I would say by September 30th, you should probably try to see if you have 3 members that pay dues, and those can be a president, a secretary, and one of the VPs, hopefully VPE.
Okay.
And if you can get that, then you can keep adding, and you still have access to Club Central if it hasn't been launched already.
Okay, so the idea that the club can remain on life support then if that happens.
Yeah.
And
For life has
it's going
a
to be
base
hard
of
work
9
to
and
resurrect a
9
club that
today.
got that low in membership.
Too many different people talking, can't hear.
Oh.
What?
Club 1015 Harbor Lights Club has 9 members today.
Yeah, so they won't die for at least a year.
Okay, well, that's
They'll
fine.
be
Yeah.
suspended in 6 months if they're not at over 8.
Okay,
And then after another 6 months will go by before they'll pull the charter. So you have a
because
year.
we're in the middle of collecting dues, so that's good to know. All
And
right.
Norm has his hand raised.
Oh, yes.
I have a question. I'm not clear on this, and I should be. If on October 1st, clubs have less than 8 members, I know it's going to take Toastmasters a week or 2 to catch up with it, but that's the date when dues are due. If they're less than 8 members, are they going to get suspended?
No.
No, if they had 8 members before that, like at the last renewal in March, April, if they had 8 members at that point and they're now down to 3, they won't be suspended for another 6 months. You get an extra 6 months to resurrect.
So
that's what we're doing with this club.
So you're saying as long as they paid their dues previously, even if they drop below 8, they'll give them that chance until the next go round before they suspend them.
Yep.
A club with less than 8 members is a club not in good standing, but it isn't a club that is going to be terminated. It just means they have things that they are not allowed to do. They cannot
participate in contests.
Each contestant, right. And that you can have as few as 3 members and be still not turned off in Club Central.
Okay.
But you can't end the year with less than 8 members on June 30th and count toward being a club that was retained by the district. You'll carry forward. You'll be in the following year, but it'll count as a lost club on the district's report card.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay.
It is 10:42, Kathy.
Yes, and we did run over, but I'm happy everybody had a little bit longer time to do some of the audience participation. That was our planned. We went a little over. We didn't stick to our 1 to 2 minutes, but there was too much to be said. So it was important, I think, that we allowed the people to be the spokespeople and report for 3 or 4. And that was an oversight of thinking 1 to 2 minutes would be enough.
No worries.
Thank you everyone for being here today. I will provide the links that I shared in the chat, the resources that we used for the breakout room session, the recording of the meeting today, as well as I am going to save the chat and send that because some people had some good suggestions in the chat as well. Thank you, and meeting adjourned.
Great job, everybody. Excellent prep. Loved your slides and the content.
Hey, all the winners